So you want to make a webtoon. Whether you want to write, draw, or do both to create a webtoon, you have to know what you're getting into. I've tried setting up multiple and currently have a couple running. If you want to look for them, you can check them out via the link in the description. I want to preface this by saying I am not an expert and this is just me trying to give advice. And alright, let's get started. So you want to make a webtoon. Do you want to write it? Do you have a story in mind? Or do you just want to draw something? Well, writers and visual artists can come together and create a comic. That is a great thing to do, and I've sort of done that. But let's say you want to do both. Let's say you want to go solo. You have a story in mind, and you think you can draw it out pretty well. That's great, but you have to consider a few things. You have to start on canvas, which is different than originals. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll explain. Canvas is where new creators start out. They can publish their stories, and I mean absolutely anyone can publish. Of course, there are restrictions to nudity and adult content, but just about anyone can start a webtoon. That's why it's so popular. You'll start out a nonprofit, which is also why you see a lot of webtoon creators starting up Patreons, where they can get funded. Although, once you get large enough, you can qualify for ad revenue. And you get scouted by Webtoon itself. You can then have the opportunity to become an original, which gets you noticed by big channels like Netflix and start a real franchise with merchandise and millions of readers, which happens every so often. Okay, Mav, you might be saying, I already knew that. Well, then we can start getting serious. Much pressuring creators to keep uploading as fast as they can, otherwise they'll be buried in the millions of webtoons out there to read. You have to be your own cheerleader and content creator, marketing and creating everything within it. This is why some successful webtoons have whole teams of people, like Zomcom. But there are certainly people who make it. Harry Amoros, the author of Ingrid the Plague Doctor, and Shanna Bluechair have at least made it through sheer determination. They even became originals. But it's easy to create a slice-of-life comic strip consistently, right? It's easier than a story-based one, but uploading consistently to keep up with Webtoon's demand isn't easy no matter what story you have. The physical effect that making a Webtoon has on you isn't something to joke about. It's caused injuries on many occasions, including wrist injuries. And not to mention the mental health issues that come with it as well. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a webtoon creator, it's a challenge for sure, but it can be rewarding to receive not just feedback on your art, but it can also help monetarily. Patreons and Ko-fis can help, although unfortunately Webtoon doesn't have anything like that built in unless you count the ad sharing program. Your ideas and your creations are your own. They're yours, and nothing should be able to squash them. It's important to remember that even if it can be crushing to climb the mountain of being a content creator, no matter what, don't let some random person on the internet make your decision at the end of the day. It's you who should decide if you want to share your imagination to the expanse of the internet. So let's learn how to storyboard. This is a very important skill so you don't overwhelm yourself with having to come up with everything straight then and there. So first, let's come up with some characters. So I wanted to do a very simple kind of thing. I wanted to do characters with big, expressive shapes, and some that are very noticeable, and things that you can really tell who they are. The best cartoon characters are ones that you can remember iconically. So I was just kind of making this up as I went, which is not how you want to go with your characters. You want to have a little more thought, but for the purpose of this, I just came up with a very pointy and boxy fisherman and a very round and kind of fluffy woman. And I imagined her coming from the south and being very sweet, but also having a bit of a temper. I just kind of thought of their personalities as I went, and I decided that I'll figure out the personalities later. So here I'm color scripting for them, which is basically where you don't spend too much time on the coloring. You just kind of throw down a couple blobs to figure out what kind of the colors that you think of them and what colors you want them to be. So here is what people normally do when they storyboard. They make it just like that. But what I actually like to do is mix up the panels a little bit. That's how storyboards get to be more interesting. You can actually have one less panel and less work to do as a whole if you go with this method. And if you look at big webtoons, they have more interesting panels. You can get away with this kind of panel, but as you make more interesting ones, you can come up with more interesting poses, more storytelling dynamics, and even as I'm drawing this guy here, I can kind of add more to his character, like these little fringes in the back. I started to add those because I had to draw him from behind. And I was really just making this up as I went, which is definitely not how you want to go with this, but this is just to show you how to start the process and set up. I sometimes don't even have a big story in mind specifically. I just have an idea of what I want this to be. And what I wanted this to be was this fisherman sitting here, and maybe this is his mom, or maybe this is his sister, and she's coming to tell him something very important. And he tells her that he has to keep fishing to make a living, or to make money because they're poor. And this is just, I have a general gist of what I want the story to be. And this is when I kind of go in and I start to really fine-tune those details. But as you can see, I'm not making up the actual dialogue here. You don't have to be super specific. This is to give you a rough idea and an outline to help you when you start actually sketching this out. And I'll kind of show you, I believe, sketching this out, but I'm not sure. This was mainly just supposed to show you how to storyboard and how to make things look more interesting and less boxy. You can have the characters break out of their boxes. You can have the dialogue come out. That's a really important thing to do. And to zoom the camera in and out everywhere. It's really important that you make it look interesting, and that you have close-ups, wide shots, you have different characters, and you make it seem interesting to the reader. Otherwise, it's just going to be really boring to look at, and your reader isn't going to want to read your comic. Thank you so much for watching, and there's been a lot of personal drama going on in my life, so I'm sorry that this isn't long enough, but there are a majority of you are not subscribed who are watching, so please consider that, and thank you so much. Goodbye!